U.S. talk show host Jimmy Kimmel returns to the air on Tuesday after Disney reversed its suspension of his show. Disney said the decision was made after thoughtful conversations. Kimmel's show was taken off air last week following threats from the Trump administration and regulators over comments he made about Charlie Kirk's assassination. His suspension caused outrage, with critics accusing Trump of a media crackdown. Hollywood unions and lawmakers rallied for free speech outside Kimmel's studio before his return was announced. Scott Lucas is professor of American Studies at University College Dublin. I asked for his perspective on the return of the Jimmy Kimmel program.
Well, I think we await details on how and why Jimmy Kimmel returned to the air, or maybe was allowed to return to the air after he was suspended through pressure from the Trump administration on distributors of his program. It's not been revealed what the terms of the arrangement are, although a statement said that Kimmel had been in meetings. There had been discussions about his ill-timed and inappropriate comments. In other words, his statements regarding the exploitation of Charlie Kirk's murder. There is one thing that we know that means that this is only a partial restoration of Kimmel, and that is that one major, in fact, the leading distributor of ABC programs, and ABC is Jimmy Kimmel's channel, the Sinclair Broadcasting Corporation, has said that they will not air his program on their 38 affiliates. Sinclair, far from coincidentally, is very close to the Trump administration and has promoted Trump for years. Nexstar, another distributor, we wait to see whether it too will also decline to put Kimmel back on the air, at least on its affiliates.
I wonder whether this is a relevant question then. Can this comeback, if we can call it that, be seen as a victory for Trump's opponents?
I'm waiting to see to evaluate this. Certainly, I mean, I'm glad that Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air, because I think this was an egregious encroachment on free speech. And indeed, I think it's part of the Trump administration's authoritarian approach to shutting down any criticism and dissent. But at best, it's a partial restoration of Kimmel on the air. And we don't know, will he be free to carry out his monologues, his critique, his analysis in the way he was before the suspension? Personally, I think the statements he made about Charlie Kirk, while some will not agree with them, were actually appropriate. And for offense to cause his suspension actually speaks more to the Trump administration's approach to power than it does to any egregious harm that was caused to Charlie Kirk or Charlie Kirk's family in the wake of his assassination.
Sinclair, as you mentioned, and we should add Nexstar, have said they won't air Kimmel unless he apologizes. What does this situation say about freedom of speech in the U.S.?
Why, freedom of speech is always something, while we cherish it as a right, there's always questions in terms of responsible speech, in terms of what's taking place. And what's happened under this current administration, it has been an issue for years, but it's especially elevated by Donald Trump and his folks, is that they will shout free speech if it applies to them, because they want to remove regulations on what they can say. They want to remove regulations in terms of the accuracy of their statements, and at some points in terms of whether their statements constitute incitement. On the other hand, if someone says something that the Trump folks don't like, and this could be at universities, this could be at private businesses, this is certainly within government agencies, it of course is within the media, then the Trump administration will try to curb those folks. It will curb them by trying to deny them that speech, but it will also try to get them dismissed or reprimanded. So Jimmy Kimmel's case is just one of many. Indeed, just over the weekend, I heard of some chilling cases from the University of Pennsylvania amongst academics and students who just are afraid to speak out now because they fear retribution.
Both supporters and critics of Kimmel's suspension have cited freedom of speech as their main argument. How polarized do you think American society is right now on issues like this?
American society has been polarized for decades. I mean, and your viewers will know that. And that polarization has intensified, in part because of, I think, the damaging effects of social media, but in part because of, they are across the political spectrum, but especially from the right, and especially the Trumpists, who are on an us versus them approach to politics and society rather than some idea of consensus. How much worse can this get? I think what we are seeing is that free speech is not being discussed in the way that it should be, as it has been in Germany in the past, by the way, in terms of responsible speech, in terms of speech that does not cause incitement to violence. We're seeing free speech being used as a politicized term and even as a weapon to try to bolster one group while doing down, as Donald Trump put it, its enemies within.
Scott Lucas, Professor of American Studies at University College Dublin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about this now with our colleague, Scott Roxborough from DW Culture. He joins us from Cologne. Scott, what has sparked Jimmy Kimmel's return to air, really, at least partially, in the U.S.?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few things that have led to it. If I want to say just generally, I think the narrative changed around Jimmy Kimmel when Disney and ABC made the decision to pull him off the air last week. It was basically in the face of what looked like strong conservative outrage against what Jimmy Kimmel said on air about the killer of right-wing podcaster Charlie Kirk. Whether the outrage was real or manufactured, there was this sense that there was this groundswell against Jimmy Kimmel. Once ABC took the decision to pull him off the air, that quickly changed, and the narrative became about freedom of speech and about what looked like a crackdown on or censorship. Maybe directed by the Trump government from various quarters. And that sort of change of narrative seems to be, at least in my opinion, what led to this reversal of a decision by ABC. Of course, ABC didn't really clarify why they took Jimmy Kimmel off the air in detail, and they haven't really said now why they're going to reinstate him. So a lot of this is, of course, just speculation.
More than 400 of Hollywood's biggest stars have signed an open letter in support of Jimmy Kimmel. Some even urged viewers to cancel their Disney Plus subscriptions. How much impact is this having on the industry?
Well, it's definitely making it's a symbolic gesture, at least, if nothing more. And maybe it has had some influence on ABC and Disney's decision. Of course, also the Hollywood unions came out strongly in support of Jimmy Kimmel, and they have a lot of power within Hollywood. But it isn't just from the sort of the Hollywood progressive side that you saw critique of this decision by ABC and Disney. You even saw conservative figures. Ted Cruz, the U.S. senator from Texas, said publicly on his podcast that he was against this decision, and it looked like a crackdown on freedom of speech. So the whole discussion around this changed quite quickly from a lot of people on the conservative side supporting the decision that ABC and Disney took in pulling Jimmy Kimmel off the air, to a real strong backlash against it, and fears that this could be a sign of something much more sinister in terms of restricting freedom of speech in America. And I think that all this pressure built up on ABC very, very quickly and led, in my opinion, their decision to put Kimmel back on the air.
Well, there's another TV network giant, Sinclair, that has said it will not air Kimmel unless he apologizes, and it's also unclear if he'll go live again on local stations run by major TV network Nexstar. How hard would that hit Disney, Scott?
Yeah, it'll hurt them it'll be quite severe, actually, the consequence, because the U.S. system is such that their national broadcasters are carried by local affiliates, they call them, local partner broadcasters, which are typically not owned by ABC and Disney. And two of the biggest, you name them, Sinclair and Nexstar, have both opposed Jimmy Kimmel and his statements from last week. Sinclair have publicly said they're not going to carry him when he comes back on the air. That will hit dozens of stations, of cities that would normally carry the Jimmy Kimmel show, and so that will have a knock-on effect on the audience share, on the ratings, and therefore on the money that ABC will be able to earn by broadcasting his show. So it has a definite direct business impact on ABC and therefore on Disney.
Scott, thank you very much. That was our culture correspondent, Scott Roxborough.